Marcus stood at the window of his penthouse, watching the sunset over New York City for what felt like the millionth time. Perhaps it actually was the millionth time. He had lost count somewhere around the fall of Rome. The golden light caught the edges of the skyscrapers, making them glow like the spires of that ancient city. He remembered those spires too, though they had been quite different. A gentle buzz from his phone interrupted his thoughts. Another alert about a potential disaster. A research facility in Nevada had just made a breakthrough in quantum computing that would accidentally create a black hole if left unchecked. Marcus sighed and picked up his phone, sending a carefully worded email to one of the lead scientists, pointing out a crucial flaw in their calculations. Crisis averted, just like the thousands before it. That's how it had always been. Small nudges here, tiny corrections there. Humanity didn't need a savior who moved mountains. They needed someone who understood that the butterfly effect could turn a single email into salvation. Marcus had been doing this dance since before they invented writing. He walked to his study, his footsteps silent on the thick carpet. The walls were lined with books, his personal collection of humanity's mistakes that never happened. Each volume documented a disaster he prevented. The plague that never spread, the war that never started, the invention that never destroyed its creators. He picked up the latest volume, still mostly empty, and added a new entry. Quantum computing accident prevented. Nevada facility. The setting sun cast long shadows across his desk, where a simple wooden box sat. Inside was a small stone tablet, worn smooth by time. He had carved those marks himself, 40,000 years ago. Guide them, but let them grow. Save them, but let them fall. Love them, but never let them know. His first and only command to himself. Marcus turned on his computer, checking his various feeds and alerts. As an investment banker, he had a perfect cover for keeping tabs on global developments. Money moved the world, and he moved money. A report caught his eye. A small tech company in Brazil was getting close to creating true artificial intelligence. Too close. He made a note to arrange a buyout before they succeeded. Humanity wasn't ready for that. Not yet. His phone buzzed again. A text from his grandson. Really just one of his many invented identities about dinner plans. Marcus smiled. Even after all these years, he still enjoyed these small human moments. He needed them to remember why he did this, why he carried this endless burden. The night grew deeper, and Marcus's screens filled with more data. Social media trends, scientific breakthroughs, political movements. He watched it all, looking for patterns, for dangers, for opportunities to guide without controlling. A protest in London needed attention. It would grow too violent without intervention. A quick phone call to an old friend in the police force would ensure things stayed peaceful. He walked to another window, this one facing the city proper. Millions of lights twinkled below, each one representing a life he had sworn to protect. How many times had he watched cities like this rise and fall? How many times had he guided humanity back from the brink of destruction? The weight of millennia pressed down on his shoulders as he remembered the faces of those he'd watched grow old and die. Everyone he'd ever known, ever cared about, had turned to dust while he remained. Sometimes he wondered if it would be easier to just let humanity face its challenges alone. But then he remembered the fires of Rome, the plague pits of London, the nuclear close calls of the Cold War. No, humanity needed him, even if they didn't know it. A subtle alert appeared on his phone. Unusual solar activity detected. Marcus quickly checked his astronomical feeds. A massive solar flare was building, one that could fry every electronic device on Earth. Time to call in a favor at NASA, have them discover the threat and raise the alarm. Better to let humanity think they saved themselves. As midnight approached, Marcus added a few more entries to his book of averted disasters. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new threats, new opportunities to guide humanity forward. He had been their silent guardian for thousands of years, and he would continue for thousands more. That was his choice, his burden, his purpose. The city lights flickered below, like stars fallen to earth, And Marcus allowed himself a small smile. They had come so far from their first campfires, yet they still feared the dark. Perhaps someday they would be ready to know the truth. But not yet. Not today. Today, like every day for the past 40,000 years, he would watch and guide and protect, and no one would ever know. The emergency alert blared through every device on Earth at exactly 3:47 a.m. Eastern Time. Marcus watched from his office as the world erupted into chaos. The Dominion ships had just passed Mars, their massive forms blocking out the stars. This was different from every other crisis he had managed before. This time, he couldn't solve it with a carefully worded email or a well-placed phone call. The United Earth Council gathered in their underground bunker beneath Geneva. Marcus watched their emergency meeting through the security feeds he had access to. They argued about evacuation plans, military responses, and surrender terms. None of it would work. The Dominion's technology was centuries ahead of Earth's best defenses. His phone rang. It was Admiral Baker from the Global Defense Force, someone he had subtly guided into position over the years. "Sir, our long-range scans show they have weapons we've never seen before. Energy readings are off the charts. We need options." Marcus closed his eyes. For the first time in 40,000 years, he would have to step out of the shadows. "Call an emergency session of the council," he said. "Tell them Marcus Gray has a solution." The council chamber was packed when Marcus arrived. He recognized faces he had watched since they were children, leaders he had quietly shepherded into position. They all looked so young to him now, so scared. Director Reed, the council head, stood as Marcus entered. "Mr. Gray, you claim to have a solution to our current crisis. The floor is yours." Marcus walked to the center of the chamber. Centuries of practicing this moment hadn't made it any easier. He pulled out an ancient stone tablet from his briefcase, the same one he had carved his promise on millennia ago. "What I'm about to tell you will change everything you think you know about human history." He pressed his palm against the tablet, and holographic displays sprung to life around the chamber. Images flashed by. Him standing beside Egyptian pharaohs, consulting with Roman senators, advising kings and presidents. "I have walked among you for 40,000 years. I have guided humanity through countless disasters, wars, and near-extinction events. And now I must break my own rule of silence to save you once again." The chamber erupted into chaos. Security teams drew their weapons. Scientists rushed forward to examine the holographic displays. Politicians shouted questions and accusations. Marcus waited patiently. He had expected this reaction. Director Reed's voice cut through the noise. "Prove it." Marcus nodded and pulled up his sleeve. He took a knife from his pocket, and before anyone could stop him, cut deep into his arm. The wound glowed with a soft blue light and healed instantly, leaving no scar. The chamber fell silent. "The Dominion ships will reach Earth in 72 hours, Marcus continued. "Their weapons can crack our planet like an egg. Your military cannot stop them. Your diplomacy cannot sway them. But I can give you the technology to fight back. I have been preparing for this moment for centuries, developing defenses that humanity wasn't ready to handle until now." Admiral Baker stepped forward. "Why wait until now? Why let us face this threat at all?" Marcus touched the stone tablet again, and new images appeared. Beautiful cities on distant worlds, all in ruins. Because the Dominion destroys any civilization that hasn't earned its place among the stars. They believe that species who receive advanced technology without developing it themselves are doomed to destroy themselves. I had to let humanity develop naturally, or you would have been marked for extinction long ago. The council members looked at each other, decades of political rivalries forgotten in the face of this revelation. Director Reed spoke again, his voice steady despite his obvious shock. "What's the price for your help?" Marcus looked around the chamber, meeting every pair of eyes. "The truth. No more shadows, no more secret guidance. Humanity must know who I am and what I've done. And after this crisis is over, you must decide whether to accept my continued guidance or forge your own path forward. The chamber fell silent again as the implications sank in. 40,000 years of hidden history. Every major human achievement called into question. The very foundation of human independence challenged. Above them, through the bunker's sophisticated sensors, they could see the Dominion ships growing larger by the hour. Time was running out. Humanity had to make a choice. Accept their debt to their eternal guardian, or face extinction alone. News of Marcus's existence spread across Earth like wildfire. Military bases went on high alert, religious leaders called emergency meetings, and social media exploded with leaked footage from the council chamber. Humanity had 48 hours until the Dominion arrived, and they were spending it arguing about their mysterious guardian. Marcus sat in a secured room beneath the Geneva complex, watching the world react. Screens surrounded him, each showing different news channels and social media feeds. Some called him humanity's savior. Others branded him a manipulator, a puppet master who had stolen humanity's right to choose its own path. Both were right, in their own ways. A knock on the door interrupted his thoughts. Dr. Emma Wells entered, carrying a stack of history books. She was the council's top historian, and her eyes burned with questions. "These events," she said, dropping the books on his desk, "all of them were you, weren't they? The Great Fire of London that led to modern building codes. The failed assassination attempt on Kennedy that improved security protocols. The Russian officer who refused to launch nuclear weapons during the Cold War." Marcus nodded slowly. "Some I prevented. Others I allowed to happen because humanity needed to learn from them. I never caused disasters. I just guided how humanity responded to them." Emma opened one of the books, pointing to a painting of a medieval physician. The man in the image looked exactly like Marcus. "How many of us figured it out over the years? How many humans discovered your secret?" 47, Marcus replied. "Most of them kept the secret. Those who threatened to expose me found their evidence mysteriously lost or destroyed. It wasn't perfect, but it worked for 40,000 years." Another knock. Director Reed entered with Admiral Baker and Kate Thompson, a young diplomat who had been making waves in international relations. Kate's eyes were red from lack of sleep, but her voice was steady. "The public is demanding answers. We need to make a formal announcement about you and the Dominion threat." Marcus stood and walked to the window. Through the bulletproof glass, he could see protesters gathering in the streets below. Some carried signs praising him, others condemning him. "The announcement won't matter if we can't stop the Dominion. It's time I showed you what I've been preparing." He led them to a hidden elevator, one that didn't appear on any building plans. It descended deep beneath the complex, finally opening into a vast chamber that stretched for miles. Inside were rows of sleek ships, advanced weapons, and technology that looked like it came from centuries in the future. "I built all of this in secret," Marcus explained as they walked past the ships. Each piece was developed using knowledge humanity already had, just applied in ways you hadn't discovered yet. "The Dominion can't claim I gave you advanced technology. You had the capability to build all of this yourselves." Admiral Baker ran his hand along one of the ships. "How long would it have taken us to develop this on our own?" "Another century, maybe two." Marcus stopped at a central control station. "But we don't have that kind of time now." Kate stepped forward, her diplomatic training evident in her careful words. "The public is divided. Half of humanity sees you as a god, the other half as a tyrant. How can we unite them in time to fight the Dominion?" "By telling them the truth," Marcus said, activating the control station. Holographic displays filled the air around them, showing scenes from human history. "Show them everything. The disasters I prevented and the ones I allowed. The lives I saved and the ones I had to sacrifice for the greater good. Let them see that I'm neither god nor tyrant, just someone trying to help humanity survive." Emma looked up from the historical records she had been studying. "Some will never forgive you for manipulating our history." "I know," Marcus said quietly, "but I'd rather humanity hate me and survive than love me and perish." The ground shook slightly. Above them, The Dominion ships were entering Earth's atmosphere. Time was running out. Director Reed looked at the assembled technology, then at Marcus. "How do we begin?" Marcus pressed his hand against the control panel, and the entire chamber hummed to life. Ships powered up, weapons systems came online, and defensive shields began to form around major cities. "We begin by showing the Dominion that humanity has earned its place among the stars. Not because of me, but despite me." As alarms began to sound throughout the complex, Marcus looked at the humans around him. For the first time in 40,000 years, he didn't have to hide who he was. Whether that was a blessing or a curse would depend on what happened in the next 24 hours. The first attack came at dawn. The Dominion ships descended through Earth's atmosphere like dark stars, their hulls absorbing light rather than reflecting it. Marcus stood in the command center, watching as military leaders from around the world waited for his signal. Everything depended on perfect timing. "Your weapons won't work unless they're fired in exactly the right sequence," Marcus explained, his fingers flying over the control panel. "The Dominion's shields adapt to any attack pattern they recognize. That's why no civilization has ever defeated them. They keep using the same strategies that failed before." Admiral Baker nodded, but Marcus could see the doubt in his eyes. Some of the other military leaders looked even more skeptical. They had spent their entire careers learning strategy and tactics, and now they were being told to follow the instructions of someone they had only known about for 2 days. The first Dominion ship opened fire on New York. The beam of energy that shot from its hull should have vaporized half the city. Instead, it splashed harmlessly against an invisible barrier. Marcus had activated the shield network just in time. "Now," Marcus commanded, "fire the pulse cannons in sequence. Each city must fire 3 seconds after the last, starting with Tokyo and moving west. Not a second sooner or later." The military leaders relayed the orders. Around the world, the weapons Marcus had built in secret came to life. Pulses of blue energy shot into the sky in a perfectly timed wave. The first shots bounced off the Dominion shields, but each impact weakened them slightly. By the time the wave of attacks had circled the globe, the alien ship's defenses were failing. "They're adapting," Marcus warned. "Change to pattern beta. Randomize the firing order but maintain the 3-second delay." A voice crackled over the command center speakers. "This is General Roberts in London. We can hit them harder if we fire all at once. Permission to coordinate a simultaneous strike." "Negative," Marcus said sharply. "The timing is everything. If you break the pattern." But General Roberts had already given the order. Across Europe, weapon stations fired simultaneously at the nearest Dominion ship. The alien vessel's shields flared bright purple, absorbing the energy. Then it fired back. 3 European cities disappeared in flashes of light. The command center erupted in chaos. Screens showed massive casualty reports. The surviving European leaders demanded justice, claiming Marcus had set them up to fail. Admiral Baker had to shout to be heard over the noise. "Everyone, quiet." Baker's voice cut through the panic. "This proves Marcus was right. We need to follow his strategy exactly." Marcus didn't waste time on "I told you so's." Reroute power from the fallen cities to strengthen the remaining shields. Resume the original firing pattern, but skip the coordinates where the European weapons were lost. The battle continued for hours. More Dominion ships arrived, but the first wave had been caught off guard by humanity's coordinated defense. The aliens had never encountered a civilization that could resist their initial attack. Their usual strategy of quick dominance was failing. Throughout the fight, Marcus stayed focused on the control panel, making constant adjustments to shield frequencies and weapon patterns. He had spent centuries preparing for this moment, but even he couldn't predict everything. The Dominion was learning, adapting, trying to find weaknesses in Earth's defenses. Kate Thompson watched from nearby, documenting everything. As humanity's chosen witness to these events, she needed to record not just what happened, but how it felt. She saw how Marcus's hands trembled slightly each time a shield failed, how his eyes flickered with ancient pain when casualty reports came in. "You really do care about us, don't you?" she asked during a brief lull in the fighting. "This isn't just about winning or being right." Marcus's eyes stayed fixed on the screens, but his voice softened. "I've watched humanity grow from cave paintings to space stations. I've seen your worst moments and your greatest achievements. How could I not care?" A new alert flashed across the screens. The Dominion ships were pulling back, regrouping in high orbit. It wasn't a retreat. They were preparing for something bigger. "They're going to try to finish this with one massive strike," Marcus said. "We have maybe an hour to prepare. And we're running out of power for the shields." Around the room, faces turned grim. They had survived the first wave, but at a terrible cost. Now they had to decide: trust Marcus completely, or try to find their own way to survive what was coming. The fate of humanity would depend on their choice. The command center buzzed with frantic activity as the Dominion ships gathered in orbit. Marcus worked at his control panel, trying to squeeze more power from Earth's failing defense grid. The loss of the European weapons had left a dangerous gap in their defenses, and the remaining shield generators were running dangerously hot. "We need more power," Marcus muttered, his fingers dancing across the controls. "The shields won't survive their next attack without it." Admiral Baker stepped forward with a datapad. "The Chinese government has offered their entire power grid. India and Russia too. They're willing to plunge their countries into darkness if it means survival." Marcus shook his head. "It won't be enough. We need something stronger." He paused, looking at a display showing the Dominion fleet. There might be one way, but he fell silent, his ancient eyes troubled. "But what?" Kate asked, still recording everything. "I have one last secret," Marcus said quietly. "Something I built centuries ago and prayed I'd never have to use. A power source hidden in the Earth's core, drawing energy from the planet itself. It could give us the power we need, but using it might destabilize the planet's magnetic field." The room fell silent. Director Reed spoke first. "What are the risks?" "Best case, widespread electrical disruption, climate changes that would last decades. Worst case, the planet's core could begin to cool, eventually making Earth uninhabitable. But without it, the Dominion will kill us all anyway." Before anyone could respond, the sensors blared a warning. The Dominion ships were moving, not toward Earth, but toward the moon. Energy readings showed they were charging weapons. "They're going to destroy the moon," Marcus realized aloud. "The fragments would rain down on Earth, overwhelming our shields. We have minutes to decide." Admiral Baker grabbed Marcus's arm. "You've guided us for 40,000 years. Guide us now. What should we do?" For the first time since revealing himself, Marcus looked uncertain. "I don't know. This is exactly what I tried to prevent. Humanity being forced to make a world-changing decision without time to think it through. If I make this choice for you, everything I've worked for is meaningless. You have to decide." Kate stepped forward. "Put it to a vote. Every world leader, right now. Better to die making our own choice than live because someone else chose for us." Marcus nodded and opened worldwide communications. Within moments, leaders from every surviving nation were connected. Kate explained the situation and the choice they faced. The vote took less than a minute. "The results are in," Kate announced. 87% in favor of using the core reactor. Marcus's hands shook as he entered the activation codes. "I hope you've chosen wisely." Deep beneath their feet, something massive hummed to life. The lights flickered worldwide as power was drawn into Marcus's ancient machine. On the screens, they watched the Dominion ships fire at the moon. Their combined beam of energy rushed toward the lunar surface and splashed harmlessly against a shield that suddenly sparkled around the entire moon. "Now," Marcus commanded, "fire everything we have. The shields will hold for exactly 30 seconds before the core reactor overloads." Every surviving weapon on Earth fired at once. The sky lit up like daylight as energy beams struck the Dominion ships from all angles. Their shields, calibrated for a single massive attack, couldn't adapt to thousands of smaller strikes. One by one, the massive ships began to break apart. In the command center, Marcus worked frantically to contain the core reactor's energy. Sweat beaded on his forehead, something no one had ever seen before. The magnetic field is fluctuating. We have to shut it down now, or we'll lose containment. The last Dominion ship exploded just as Marcus managed to power down the core reactor. Around the world, power systems slowly came back online. Early readings showed the Earth's magnetic field was damaged but stable. As the adrenaline faded, Kate looked at Marcus. "You didn't build that reactor centuries ago, did you? You built it last week, after you detected the Dominion fleet. You wanted us to think using it was our choice." Marcus met her gaze steadily. "If I had told you the whole truth, would you have trusted the reactor?" Sometimes the best way to get humans to believe in themselves is to let them think they're making a harder choice than they really are. The implications of his words hung in the air as dawn broke over a changed Earth. They had survived, but now humanity had to face an even bigger question. Could they ever trust their guardian again? 3 days after the battle, Marcus sat alone in a holding cell beneath the Geneva complex. The walls were bare metal, the bed simple, the door heavily guarded. He had gone there voluntarily after Kate exposed his deception about the core reactor. Now he waited while humanity decided his fate. Outside his cell, the world was changing. The Dominion ships had been destroyed, but their wreckage provided proof of his claims. Teams of scientists examined the alien technology, confirming it was centuries beyond Earth's capabilities. News channels ran endless stories about his influence throughout history, with experts analyzing every major event for signs of his involvement. The cell door opened. Kate entered with Dr. Emma Wells and Director Reed. Their faces were tired but determined. Kate spoke first. "The Council has been reviewing everything. The Dominion threat, your guidance through history, and especially your recent deceptions. We have questions." Marcus nodded. "I expected you would." Emma opened her notebook. "The Dominion ships. Our analysis shows they weren't as advanced as you claimed. They were powerful, yes, but not centuries beyond us. Why did you lie?" "Because you needed to believe you were facing an impossible threat," Marcus said quietly. "Humanity comes together best when facing a common enemy. I needed you united. So you manufactured a crisis." Director Reed's voice was sharp. "Created a threat just to manipulate us." Marcus stood and walked to the small window in his cell. The Dominion was real. Their ships were real. Their intention to destroy Earth was real. I just exaggerated their capabilities, made them seem more frightening than they were. Kate's eyes narrowed, like you did with the core reactor, making us think we were risking Earth's destruction when you knew it was safe. Yes. Marcus turned to face them. "Throughout history, I learned that humans make their best choices when they think they're making their hardest choices. You rise to challenges that seem impossible. You unite against threats that seem overwhelming. And that justifies lying to us." Reed demanded. "I never lied about the important things," Marcus replied. "I never lied about caring for humanity. I never lied about wanting you to survive and thrive. I just created situations where you would choose to be your best selves." Emma checked her notes again. "The data we recovered from the Dominion ships suggests they've done this before, testing other civilizations, judging if they're worthy of survival." "Were they working with you?" Marcus smiled slightly. "Now you're asking the right questions. Yes, the Dominion is part of a larger group. We test emerging civilizations, pushing them to prove themselves. Some of us guide from within, like I did. Others play the role of external threats, like the Dominion." The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Kate's voice shook slightly when she spoke. "Everything was a test. Our entire history." "Not everything," Marcus said. "Most of your achievements were your own. Your art, your music, Your daily acts of kindness and courage, those were all genuine. We just provided opportunities for you to show your true potential. Director Reed walked to the cell door. The council meets tomorrow to decide what to do with you. Some want you executed, though we don't even know if that's possible. Others want to keep you imprisoned. A few even want to put you back in power, let you guide us openly. And what do you want? Marcus asked. Reed paused. I want to know if humanity will ever have a chance to truly stand on its own while you exist. How can we ever know what we're capable of when you're always there, manipulating events, creating artificial challenges? Marcus walked back to his bed and sat down. That's exactly the question I've asked myself for 40,000 years. Tomorrow, when the council meets, I'll give them a choice. The same choice I've given every civilization I've guided. Accept my help and protection forever, or face the universe truly alone. And if we choose independence? Kate asked. Marcus looked at each of them in turn, his ancient eyes full of something that might have been hope or might have been fear. Then you'll finally have the chance to prove you don't need me anymore. And I'll finally know if I succeeded in my mission to help humanity reach its full potential. As they left his cell, Marcus watched them go, wondering if tomorrow would mark the end of his 40,000-year vigil or the beginning of a new chapter in his relationship with humanity. The council chamber was packed for the final vote. Marcus stood in the center, no longer a prisoner but not quite free either. Every screen in the world broadcast this moment. Humanity watched as their eternal guardian faced judgment. Kate sat in the front row, her recorder capturing everything. Next to her, Dr. Emma Wells reviewed historical records one last time. Admiral Baker and Director Reed occupied their usual seats, their faces showing the weight of the decision before them. Marcus began to speak, his voice carrying to every corner of the earth through the global broadcast. For 40,000 years, I have watched over humanity. I have seen you rise from caves to stars. I have guided you, protected you, and yes, manipulated you. Today, I offer you a choice. He raised his hands, and the chamber filled with holographic images. They showed peaceful worlds, advanced civilizations, species living in harmony under the protection of beings like himself. This is what I can offer you: eternal guidance, protection from any threat, the knowledge of countless civilizations at your fingertips. You would never face another war, another global crisis, another threat of extinction. The images change, showing worlds in ruins, civilizations that had destroyed themselves, species that had vanished into cosmic dust. This is the risk you face alone. The universe is vast and uncaring. Many civilizations choose independence. Few survive it. The choice is yours. Kate stood up. As the chosen speaker for humanity, her words would shape history. Before we choose, answer one question. In all your years watching over humanity, what was your greatest fear? Marcus's eternal face showed surprise at the unexpected question. For a moment, he was silent. Then he smiled sadly. That you would never disappoint me. Confused murmurs filled the chamber. Kate pressed on. Explain. Perfect children never grow, Marcus said softly. I feared that if I protected you too well, guided you too carefully, you would become dependent on me. Every time you failed, every time you stumbled, every time you faced a crisis and solved it yourselves, those were my proudest moments. Kate nodded, as if his answer confirmed something. She turned to address the council and the watching world. For days, we've debated what to do with Marcus. We've argued about everything he's done for us, everything he's done to us. But we've been asking the wrong question. She walked to stand beside Marcus. The question isn't what we should do with him. The question is, what has he been trying to do with us? Every test, every challenge, every artificial crisis, they weren't about proving we needed him. They were about proving we didn't. Marcus's eyes widened slightly. For the first time in 40,000 years, someone had surprised him. Kate continued. The Dominion wasn't a test of our military strength. It was a test of our unity, our courage, our ability to face impossible odds. The core reactor wasn't about risking our planet. It was about risking our future to save our present. Every challenge was designed to make us stronger, more independent, more ready to stand on our own. She turned to face Marcus. You don't want us to choose your protection. You want us to choose independence. That's what this has all been about. Teaching us to survive without you. The chamber erupted in discussion. Marcus stood perfectly still, his face unreadable. Director Reed called for order, then for the vote. The choice was made. Not unanimously, but decisively. Kate spoke the words that would change everything. Humanity chooses independence. For the first time in anyone's memory, they saw tears in Marcus's ancient eyes. You understand then. All of it. We understand that the greatest gift you gave us wasn't protection, Kate said. It was the chance to outgrow it. Marcus nodded, and his form began to fade slightly. Before he disappeared, he spoke one last time. You never owed me everything. You only owed me what every child owes a parent, the courage to leave them behind. As Marcus vanished, the chamber's screens lit up with data. Star charts, scientific formulas, historical records, everything he had collected over 40,000 years. His final gift wasn't protection or guidance, but knowledge. The tools humanity would need to forge its own path among the stars. Kate looked up at the stars through the chamber's glass ceiling. Somewhere out there, Marcus was watching. Not as a guardian anymore, but as a proud parent, watching his children take their first steps into the universe alone. The greatest debt had been paid not with obedience or gratitude, but with the one thing Marcus had always wanted: proof that humanity could survive without him.